Hey, hey! This was a surprise. Greta and the Giants. Is it Greta Thunberg? Is that how you say her name? Or Greta? Greta Thunberg. Inspired by Greta Thunberg's stand to save the world. This was a surprise when we saw it in the library, wasn't it? Very cool, and it's by two Zoes. Very cool name. Zoe Tucker and Zoe Persico. Now, as we know, I'm terrible at saying names and words. Look at that. Doo-doo-doo. What does that say? That says, stop. There was once a girl who lived at the heart of a beautiful forest. Ah, her name was Greta. Or Greta. Let's go with Greta. Yeah. One morning, things weren't quite as they should be. Greta stepped out into her garden, and there, huddled together in the shadows of the trees, were all the animals of the forest. A soft, silvery brown wolf stepped forward with its tail low to the ground. "Please help us," he whispered. "The forest is broken, and we don't know where to go. The giants are ruining our home." That's pretty sad. The giants had always been there for as long as Greta could remember, but now they were worse than ever. They were huge lumbering oafs, and they were always busy. Busy, busy, busy. They chopped down trees to build homes. Then they chopped down more trees and built bigger homes. The houses grew into towns, and the towns grew into cities. They built factories and shops and cars and planes. They worked all day and all night until eventually there was hardly any forest left. Oh, sounds familiar. But the greedy giants had forgotten how wonderful the forest was. They didn't see all the little birds and bugs and butterflies and bears and that trembled in the shadows, and no one told them to stop because everyone was scared of them. Ooh. Everyone except Greta. There she is. "Will you help us?" asked the wolf. Greta looked around her. The animals looked tired and sad. She had to help them, but how? How do you help them? Ah! Sassy. Then Greta had an idea. Simple idea. The next morning, Greta went to the middle of the forest and waited for the giants to come. She stood alone, holding a big sign. And that sign said, what does that say? Stop. She waited and waited. Everyone else is still a bit scared. On the first day, the giants didn't see her and lumbered on by. Doop, doop, doop. Big, big steps. And on the second and third, too. But on the fourth day, something strange happened. A little boy who had been watching Greta made a sign and came and sat down next to her. He didn't say much, but Greta knew he felt like she did. They both know what's up. What is it? His sign says, "Listen." Soon, more people and animals saw what they were doing and joined in too. Wow, look at all these signs. Isn't that cool? That's what we call a protest. It's like, hey, listen. Stop and listen. Before long, a huge crowd filled the forest, stretching out to the city and the roads beyond. They stood together and waited. Waiting for these big giants, slumbering giants, to notice them. Ooh. The crowd was so huge that the giants were stopped in their tracks. "Please stop," Greta cried. "Your greedy behavior is spoiling our home. You've broken the trees and trampled the flowers, and now the bees and birds have flown away. These animals are homeless and our forest is dying." After Greta had spoken, everything was silent. But then Everyone in the crowd began to shout. The smoke from your fires is choking the air, and please stop cutting down the trees. Bears live here too. You can help plant new ones. We need change. We need to take care of our forest and live together. Will you please try? They all said. Would you please try? And they're all huddled together. Ooh. The giants shuffled and fidgeted and stomped their feet on the ground. Boom, boom, boom. They were embarrassed and a little bit sad. You see, the giants were so busy building, they didn't see what they were doing to the forest or the animals who lived there. The giants felt terrible. We're sorry, they said, and they promised to try harder. So from that day on, the greedy giants weren't so greedy. They slowed down and learned to sit quietly. They stopped working all the time and instead took up new hobbies. Oh, you're making socks. New hobbies are always good. They stopped chopping down trees and learned all about gardening and living in the forest. It's good little... Oh, it's nice. Nice flowers. They cooked, repaired, tidied and shared. And before long, the forest became more beautiful than they could ever have imagined. Oh, everyone working together. Isn't that nice? Greta with the wolf. It's a nice picture. In fact, all of these pictures are very nicely done. And that was the story. Greta and the Giants. Now there is a little bit at the end here that I'll probably read as well, because they were inspired by a real girl called Greta Thunberg. If I'm getting a name wrong, so sorry. When Greta was not much older than you, she found out about something called climate change. This means the world is getting hotter and hotter, and this is causing a lot of damage. Scientists all agree that this rising temperature is down to human activity. When we burn coal, oil and gas, called fossil fuels, something called carbon dioxide is released into the air, and this makes the world warm up. The polar ice is melting, the sea levels are rising, forests are being chopped down, and animals are left homeless. The Earth is already 1 degree Celsius hotter than it used to be. This has resulted in the worst wildfires, just in fact last year. Very interesting one here in this country. There's wildfires, storms and floods, and more than 1 million people living near the coast have been forced to leave their homes. If we carry on as we are, things will only get worse. Climate change is the biggest crisis humans have ever faced. Greta knew all of this, and she couldn't understand why no one was doing anything about it. So when she was 15, she went on strike from school, sitting outside the Swedish government building and holding a sign that said, "Strike for Climate." Over time, people stopped to join her, and now her protest has encouraged children and adults from all over the world to stand up for climate change too. Greta has spoken to politicians from many different countries, and in 2019, she was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize. That's 2 years ago. Very cool book there. Alright, I hope you have a great night. Sassy keeps coming up to me, little kitty. Alright, good night.